Hello everyone, welcome to another video. Today we're going to be checking out this, the Eufy Smart Lock E330. Some of you may be thinking, wait a second, hasn't he done a video on this lock before? And I can't fault you for thinking that, because this looks very, very similar to my Video Smart Lock S330, but this is the E330, which has some subtle differences. And if you're like, how many locks does this guy have? Well, there's always more. This is the C220 this was the first smart lock I did a video on with Eufy, and this is the newest one I have here. This is the E330. So we have the S330, the C220, and the E330. This one is kind of a balance between these two, and there's even ones in between all of these as well. But we'll go ahead and talk about those differences later. Let's go ahead and start with the unboxing. One of the best parts about any Eufy products is that there are no monthly fees. Once you own this device, you have access to everything. You don't have to pay to have access to special features within your own devices. As you can see from our packaging, the one biggest difference that I'll point out here is this BHMA certification. This means that this lock was built to a higher standard to be able to withstand the rigors and uses of a outdoor smart lock. So as you can see, this is our first display of our locking system. Right here we have the brains and everything. This guy is quite different from previous models. This is a very flush mounted lens. Again, we have our doorbell button right here, but also behind it, as always, is our lock. So this one pops up and swings out. That's probably a change that's been made for that certification. This is no longer a piece of rubber that this can be lost and disconnected and fall away. This only swings away for you to be able to access your regular keyhole here. Then down here at the bottom, you can see we're using modern charging with a USB-C charging port. We have our 2K wide-angle camera and our fingerprint reader right here on top. Then here, of course, we have the less exciting indoor side of it. Very simple, sleek, black. This section here lifts up as always to be able to expose our battery station. This does run off of a rechargeable battery. You saw it before, there's a USB-C port. So if the battery does die while you're away, you can always plug it in from outside and recharge that battery, or just disconnect the battery here, bring it inside and set that up. Underneath the latch section, we can see a mounting plate. And right here we have what I assume to be our instruction manuals. A sticker to let everyone know you do have Eufy security. And this is our quick start guide with all of our legal notifications as well. But honestly, everything is just going to forward you straight to the Eufy app to get started. Next we have our Deadbolt plate here with screws. We have our mounting screws and hardware, and then we have our keys. Next we have our battery here. This looks surprisingly similar to the previous battery on the S330. And lastly we have our deadbolt latch here. That deadbolt slides in and out smoothly with a nice chrome finish. And this is everything you'll find inside of the packaging. With our camera, pin pad, and doorbell button. Our indoor side with our latch. Our battery, quick start guide and a sticker. Our door frame hardware. The keys, mounting hardware, a mounting plate, and the deadbolt latch itself. And there you have it. So we're going to go ahead and do the install process now. I'll give you a full tutorial on that. It's going to be very similar to any of my previous ones. If you've watched those videos, almost all of these locks seem to install in a very similar way. So we're going to go ahead and do that installation and also maybe make mention of any differences I notice between these previous ones and this new Video Smart Lock. Most deadbolt locks are very similar. 2 or 3 screws from the inside, and maybe a couple extras and a plug if it's a smart lock like this one. The main differences between this lock and the S330 is that this lock comes with a built-in memory of 8 gigabytes, whereas the S330 has expandable storage all the way up to 128 gigabytes. Both use a Wi-Fi connection, but the S330 has an extended reach with its indoor chime, which also contributes to the S330 getting a 10% longer battery life. Otherwise, these are almost the exact same. For about $70 less, you get this, the Eufy Video Smart Lock E330. If your old deadbolt doesn't have a plate like this, or this one doesn't fit, you can install this one on the door frame.
Welcome to Eufy Security. Please download the Eufy Security app to complete settings.
Now that we're in the app, at the very top we just hit that plus button, and this is going to be a smart lock. This is the Smart Lock E330. Tell it where it's going. Now it's asking us to scan the QR code. That QR code is located on the top of your device here, and if you haven't already, it'll talk you through the entire installation process right here in this 4.5 minute video. I've already done the installation right here, and now you have the option to connect to your router, or if you have the Eufy Homebase 3, you can connect to that. I don't have the Homebase 3 here, so I'm going to go ahead and connect to my router. We'll go ahead and push the set button on the back. So right here, you see that set button. Press until we hear a beep.
Ready to set up.
Okay. Now we can give it our Wi-Fi information.
Connecting to the Wi-Fi network. Please wait. Setup was successful.
And now we can tell it where it is. This is our back door. Now it says to close the door and lock it. It will then calibrate as this is the locked position.
Calibration complete.
And now we'll set our PIN code that is 4 to 8 digits. Now we can set up fingerprints. And then to set up a fingerprint registration, we'll just go ahead and click Start Enrollment.
Start fingerprint setup.
And it'll talk you through the whole process. You'll want to touch your finger on it just a little bit different each time.
Please slightly adjust the position of your finger on the sensor.
You can see that time my finger didn't quite adjust different from where it had already been.
Fingerprint setup complete.
Here they're telling you to use night vision optimization or not. So the way to test that is you'll close your door and then look here on the camera. Does the door frame extend past that blue line? You can see here on mine, it does extend beyond there. Done. We can also assign access. That means to add other people in your household. So your wife, your kids, things like that. We'll just click on assign access. And then of course the first one it lists is you, but if we hit add access, we can now add wife, confirm, and then say when they have access, say, hey, you know what, they only have access during the day. If it's, maybe somebody coming to water your plants, feed your dogs, and we can create their passcode. And they'll use the exact same process to enroll a fingerprint. Or if you don't want them to use their fingerprints, you can just hit skip. And it looks like there is a firmware update available, so we're going to go ahead and hit that update button and let that update. And our firmware update is now complete. We hit done. We can see our camera here. We can tap that little lock button right there. Press and hold to lock it. Locked. Press and hold it again to unlock it. There you go. Or you can tap it with your finger. If it's not recognizing your fingerprint, you can always use the pin pad here. Let's go ahead and take a first-time tour together of the settings in the app. So if you click on the three dots here, you can go ahead and click on your settings. The little moon there, that's if you want to snooze it. So if you're getting notifications, maybe you're hanging out on your front porch or wherever this camera is pointing, and you don't want notifications every 30 seconds or something like that, you can turn that off for 30 minutes or up to 12 hours and just snooze your motion notifications. If we hit the settings gear there, now we can see all of our features and options here. We have home base connection. So if you have the Home Base 3, this is compatible with that one. Unfortunately, I think I only have the Home Base 2. I might see if I can get my hands on a Home Base 3 here in the future to go ahead and connect it so that it'll work as a doorbell chime rather than just being the chime here on my phone. To the right of that, we have our motion detection. Inside of here, we can turn on motion detection, tell it whether we want to see humans or all motions such as animals and cars. And then we can change our detection distance depending on what situation it's installed in. So if it's on a front porch with a lot of traffic within just a couple of feet of your front porch, you can turn that down to say, hey, only give me notifications for anything within 3 feet. Or you can say, hey, you know what? I have a long front yard and a walkway up to my door. Let's do the full 17 feet. And if we go advanced, you can say, hey, only look in these areas. And you can say, hey, you know what? This area, we can say, it's closer because there's a wall here, or maybe a bush, or maybe there's flags or something else going on. Where this time of year, Christmas decorations that are on your front lawn moving around might be detected as a person. You can adjust that here in the advanced options. Activity zone. So here we can set activity zones by hitting this plus button and say, hey, you know what? Only give me motion notifications for motion in this box here. Some of the other devices I do have from Eufy offer a ignore zone, which is very valuable and useful. I wish that they would bring this back to all of their newer things. All of the new ones I've gotten don't have this feature, but an ignore zone would be really nice to be able to say, hey, you know what? Ignore any activity in this area. That'd be nice to have an ignored zone for the activity zones. Going back to our main settings menu here. Next one down, we have our integrate with doorbell or camera. So if you have a security camera you want this to be connected with on the lock, you can say, hey, you know what? When somebody comes up to my doorbell, or say my wall light cam is right next to that door, if somebody's at that wall light cam, I can look at the camera and then hit the unlock button within the app itself. And here on my doorbell cam, I actually have this integrated. You can see up here in the top corner, I can just tap this little lock button and it unlocks the door. And then I also have other locks like this video smart lock. You can tap it right here, just press and hold like we showed you before. Next, manage access. We've already seen this before where we have myself and then you can add people like a wife, kids, whatnot. We've talked about all that earlier. Next is our quick response. In here we can make a quick recording of, hey, what do you want? Or I'm on my way, or leave it at the door, whatever it is. You just click add quick response and then you can say what the response is leave the candy, and then we just press and hold the record button for up to 10 seconds. Hello, you can leave the candy right there. And then hit save and you're good to go. Next is our power management. In here we can tell it how we want it to record and react to things so that we can optimize the battery life, or if we're fine with charging it more often, we can do more surveillance, things like that. Each one of these will give you details on how it will behave. And you can even do a customized recording settings here. When you select the little pencil, you can say clip length, intervals between triggers, so you can say, hey, record, give 5 seconds in between intervals, and end clips early if motion stops. So these are the things you can change there. We scroll down a little bit more and now we have auto lock. In here we can set a preset timer to say, hey, if the door is unlocked, it will automatically lock again after 30 seconds, or we can even set a scheduled time like, hey, at 9 p.m. lock the door, at 8 a.m. unlock the door. Kind of like a business. One-touch locking is if you don't have your fingerprint registered and you want to lock the door behind you, it'll allow you to press and hold the check mark button in the bottom right corner to then lock the door. If this is turned off, you'd have to have a code or a fingerprint or the key to lock the door. Next is our wrong try protection. This is for if you put in the fingerprint incorrectly 5 times, it will then lock down the fingerprint sensor for 3 minutes. And then the last quick button there is scramble passcodes. So this is one I haven't dug into on my other devices, but is really cool. So if you're in an area that you're worried about people looking over your shoulder as you're putting in the passcode, say you're at a business or a shop or just close to a street or a sidewalk where people could be looking, this scramble passcode lets you put in a bunch of digits, your code, or your code and a bunch of digits, and then hit the lock and unlock button. And that way they never know what your code actually is amongst all of those digits. So you can go ahead and turn scramble passcode on there. Next, we have our video settings. Here we can turn on and off the Eufy watermark. Video quality is set to auto. You can tell it high, low, whatever, so you can see the image quality feeding through. I'm gonna leave it to auto just because sometimes internet quality isn't great wherever I am, wherever it is. So we're gonna let video quality just be on automatic. Recording quality, default is full HD, but you can bump it up to that 2K quality that is capable of doing. However, not all devices do support this playback because it is still in development. We're gonna go ahead and switch that over and see if we have any issues. So that's video settings. Next, let's go into night vision. Here we can see our auto night vision and night vision optimization. So if we turn off auto night vision, it'll force it to only look through the regular lens rather than the night vision lens itself. So if I turned off night vision, we can go back here and hit play. And this is what you will see without night vision. Still pretty decent for being a dark room that it's looking into. But you can't see things like into my dog's kennel, whereas if we go back into night vision, it has an IR lights that shine out, so now we can see all the way into my dog's kennel there. Audio settings, so you can turn on and off the microphone, audio recording, and the speaker. You can adjust your speaker volume. I'm gonna actually bring that down a little bit. It sounded like it was a little crackly. Ringtone volume, we're gonna bring that down as well. And our beep volume, we can say soft, medium, loud. We'll go ahead and turn that to soft or even muted if you don't want to hear a beep while you're interacting with the device. Notifications, this is where you can customize what notifications get pushed to you on your phone. I have most of mine turned off just because this is on a backdoor that's less active, so the only thing I'll get is if somebody actually rings the doorbell. I don't need to know if somebody's there because my dogs are constantly going by that back door. I don't need to know when it mistakes my dog for a person, which unfortunately he's big enough that it goes back and forth sometimes. Down here near the bottom we have what type of notifications we want to see. So most efficiency is just a text notification gets to you as quickly as possible to say, hey, I see motion, and then you have to click on it, wait for it to load to then see the video. Next is include thumbnail. This will be the slowest option where it will send you a notification as soon as it has a thumbnail of whatever motion that is. I typically will go with the full effect where it'll send you a text notification as soon as possible, but if you don't see it right away, or if it can send you a thumbnail as soon as possible, it'll send you a thumbnail to get a quick clip of what it is seeing. So you can say, oh yeah, I don't need to worry about that, swipe away, or double click in to then jump in to see what's going on that the camera sees. And then the very last two things here, we have our tones that will ring to your phone whenever it does send you a notification. So I have my motion alerts set as this change. There's a whole bunch of other options, and then ring alerts, so if somebody pushes the doorbell button, it will have a specific ringtone. So if you have multiple doors and then you want to know which door they're ringing at, a different ringtone can help you know where they're at. Next is the indoor chime. So if you have the home base or mini base, or like myself, I have an Alexa device that can work as the chime for our doorbell. We can go ahead and click on that, and then we'll enable those features on the Alexa device. That's something that maybe we'll do in a future video if you guys ask for a tutorial on that one. Lock calibration, so when we first set it up, if for some reason it's not locking properly, we can go ahead and redo the calibration on that. General, it'll show us the name of the door, status LEDs, can give us information about the internet connection, time settings, storage, mounting guide that we use to install it, as well as information about this device. For share device, you can individually share this device rather than sharing your whole home. You can share individual devices with friends and family members. Tutorial, this will give you a tutorial of everything that we're doing today, similar to what I'm doing right now. And then share your thoughts. You can always give feedback to Eufy. I've seen really great changes and things happen with Eufy devices just by sharing thoughts. On the very first smart lock that I reviewed, this C220, it actually didn't lock when you'd push the fingerprint button, but after sharing feedback, things like that, they then, through a firmware update, were able to send that update, and that feature is now available on all of their fingerprint smart locks. And that is pretty much all of the features in the app for this Eufy video smart lock. At the very beginning I said, how this looks a lot like another one I just did. And so let's go ahead and do a side-by-side comparison of these two guys. Because they do look eerily similar. However, they're definitely different. So if we get them close to each other, line up the bottoms, you can see one is slightly taller. Okay. And then I can tell, it's hard to tell you, but this one is definitely heavier. I don't know if it's just because it's sturdier, more powerful motor, whatever it is. This one is a lot heavier than this one is. However, there is one thing about this one that isn't as good as this one. Let me just show you real quick. So to access your key, you'll pop this little thing off. Here we go. It's held on with just a little piece of plastic rubber that's one day going to get brittle and weak and just break. And unfortunately, it's also a button. This piece right here is a button for your doorbell. And so when that breaks off, that means your doorbell no longer works and you just have your key exposed. Whereas this one, as part of the BHMA certification, they reinforced it to make it more sturdy. And so for starters, it's magnetic. It just sucks itself back in there. Do you see that? So if you get it aligned just right, it sucks itself back in. But also, it uses a kind of a pin swivel system that is much less prone to breaking to be able to offer more longevity. Those are the first differences I noticed. And then I kind of pointed out that the camera on this is much smoother than on the other one. And let's see if I can give you that, this one has a little bit of a bump right here, while this one is perfectly smooth until you hit the lens of the camera itself. However, this glossy area right here, this is your IR lights, your LEDs, all that stuff. So this is still doing work. It's not just a decorative trim, whereas this one is more inset. And this, one thing I'm noticing now is this is ice cold. This whole frame is metal. Where this one, I think it's metal, but it might be plastic. It's plastic. This whole frame here is plastic. While the back of it is metal here, the decorative trim outside is plastic. Another similarity I noticed is these batteries look to be the exact same. And upon reading the text on the back, these literally are two exact same batteries, which is nice. So I'm curious if this heavier, more expensive one is more efficient than this one, because Eufy does offer a 10% longer lifespan on this same battery. So maybe it's more efficient or something like that. Both of them do offer USB-C charging on the bottom here. So if there is an issue, you can charge it. If your battery dies while you're away and you don't have a chance to recharge these batteries, you can always charge it from the outside until you have enough power to unlock the door. Just to verify that both batteries do work with these guys. Okay, and then fingerprint. Unlock. Lock. Okay, ready? Pull the old battery and plug it in here, and it's behaving the exact same. These are literally the exact same batteries. There you go. One feature that might be a determining factor of whether you choose the E330 over the S330 is that indoor chime. If you live in a home where your front door is not close to the rest of the home, like if you're in a townhome and the main entrance is downstairs, or maybe you just have a larger home and you need to hear that chime from anywhere in the house, that indoor chime can be placed somewhere else in the house so that you can hear it in other places. Whereas this one, if you don't have the Home Base 3, it only chimes to here and your cell phone, so it can have a more immediate response if somebody rings your doorbell if you have the indoor chime versus this guy waiting for it to ring to your phone or having to upgrade to the Home Base 3. And that is the full tutorial for my Eufy Smart Lock E330. My final thoughts, my review is arguably it's better than the S330 just because I really like the durability of this button, and other than that, like, the other changes that I've seen there are not that big of a difference that you will see in performance over a lifetime. Whereas this one is advertised to be more sturdy and more durable for a lifetime of use. While it does use a little bit more plastic, I don't see that being a big issue unless you have people really prying on like your deadbolt carriage, but most of the time a big deadbolt with a camera and a doorbell on it is going to be enough deterrent for most criminals. I found it pretty interesting that they both use the same 10,000 milliamp hour battery. While I didn't actually test or compare, and it's kind of hard to compare like how wide of a view you get from these cameras, I feel like this one does offer a wider angle view than even the more expensive S330. One thing that I did notice that was a little bit different than the S330 from this E330 is that the more expensive one has better speakers. I don't know why that would be such a noticeable difference, but these speakers sounded like they were really straining and almost blowing the speaker just doing regular tasks when it was talking to me during the installation process.
Ready to set up.
Whereas the S330 sounded great. And then lastly, the only other negative thing I have is that it doesn't offer an ignore zone, where my doorbell cam does offer that, and I find that super useful to be able to say, hey, if you see motion here, don't send me notifications for it. I'd love to see that offered across the entire Eufy lineup. Unfortunately, that's the only device that I have that offers it, and I wish all of them did. Otherwise, it's very similar, if not comparable or better than its predecessor, the S330, that is more expensive. This would be a great option for your home security setup. If you want to get this guy for yourself, I'll have links to it down in the description below. I am an Amazon affiliate, so using those links do help to support this channel with no additional cost to you. If you enjoyed this video, please consider subscribing. If you have any questions, I try to be as responsive as possible in my comment section, so leave those questions down in the comment section below. I'll be happy to answer those. And thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next video.